Boss's shocking insult exposed, Waitress's fluent reply transforms the moment in an amazing twist. The nostalgic diner buzzed with the clatter of silverware and the comforting sizzle of bacon, the morning sun casting warm beams across the time-worn booths. Sarah, a 32-year-old waitress and single mother of two, maneuvered skillfully through the throngs of customers, her heart flipping with every clumsy step as she balanced plates of eggs and toast. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee intertwined with the sound of cheerful chatter, but beneath the surface, chaos simmered. Mr. Grayson, her dismissive boss, reignited her insecurities with a well-timed, callous jab that shattered the morning. "Maybe if you had a little ambition, Sarah, you wouldn't be stuck here like the rest of us." His sardonic remarks echoed off the diner walls, laughter from a few amused customers ringing off-key against the familiar rhythm of routine. Every snicker felt like a dagger, piercing her carefully constructed composure. Desperation clawed at her ribs as mid-mornings in this small Midwestern town blurred into days of monotony. The weight of bills and unmet aspirations hung heavy on her shoulders, drowning her dreams of nursing under tides of financial hardship and societal pressure. Was she really stuck here? The thought sent her heart racing, a rush of resentment and anguish swirling within her. Yet as she served the corner table, a group of Latino customers caught her eye, surprise and curiosity etched on their faces. In that moment, something snapped within her. With a breath, she unearthed a piece of herself long buried by self-doubt. She greeted them in fluent Spanish, her voice warm and enthusiastic, their reaction sparking something deep inside. The external laughter faded, replaced by a deeper connection. She embraced this hidden talent with the fervor of a woman rediscovering her identity. But could this spark of defiance override the lingering humiliation? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the moment of triumph came crashing down as she witnessed Mr. Grayson's scowl, his dismissal still glaring. The regular customer at the counter recorded her engagement, unknowingly foreshadowing a storm brewing in her life. Sarah's joy, however momentary, fell under the looming shadow of her boss's disdain. Could she keep channeling this newfound confidence in a place that stifled her? The video rippled through the digital tide, her brief moment of connection transforming into something larger. People across the nation began to engage with her story. The sudden attention sparked inquiries about respect and dignity in the workplace, but it threatened to wrench her from the familiarity of her life, an unsettling promise of change that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Staring into the eyes of her children, she felt the pressure mount. Could she truly step beyond what she knew? Mr. Grayson's condescension echoed in her mind, chipping away at her confidence, yet the pleas of ambition whispered sweetly, urging her toward an uncertain horizon. The internal conflict tightened, the unshakable weight twisting into dread as she stood at the precipice of decision. Would she choose to undergo this painful transformation, or would she allow fear to anchor her to the very ground she hoped to escape? The words from the corner table began to feel like both challenge and hope, sparking a flicker of resolve amidst the fog of doubt. The days stretched on, each morning in the diner blending into the next, yet Sarah felt a subtle undercurrent shifting within her. A cautious flicker of ambition rekindled by the reactions of those Latino customers now burned bright in her mind. As she poured coffee, wiping tables with a feigned smile, an idea crystallized amidst her chaotic thoughts. Perhaps it was time to explore what lay beyond this diner, to embrace her talents in a way she never dared to consider. The video resurfaced on her phone each night, likes and comments drifting in like raindrops on a parched landscape. People praised her for the vibrant enthusiasm she shared so effortlessly. Their messages seemed to resonate not merely with her bilingual skills but also with an unspoken hunger for authenticity. While Mr. Grayson's words echoed, a newfound clarity began to surface. What if she extended her Spanish skills beyond serving tables? A tutoring side gig, perhaps? The thought sent a shiver through her, a daring sensation she had almost forgotten. That night, Sarah sat in the dim light of her cramped living room, her children asleep nearby. The glow from her phone offered refuge as she scrolled through local ads, seeking tutors and language programs. Each listing seemed to pulse with promise and peril, a call to embrace the very talents she had undervalued for so long. After contemplating the costs of cramming her busy life with one more obligation, she turned to her children. Their soft, innocent faces stirred something within her, a resolve that outweighed the fears of financial strain or time management. With a boldness that surprised even herself, she crafted a brief advertisement for tutoring in Spanish. She hesitated. What if no one responded? What if she failed? But the scars left by Mr. Grayson's disdain urged her onward. The armor of determination began to form as she pressed post. The next morning, the diner felt different. The laughter floated on a current of change, sharp and electric. Mr. Grayson's presence loomed, yet she realized now that his piercing remarks had fueled a fire she hadn't known existed. Every plate she served felt like a victory, as if she pulled from an unseen reservoir of purpose. As the hours wore on, she glanced at the phone, tightly gripped in her palm. A notification buzzed. A potential tutoring client had reached out, expressing interest in her Spanish lessons. Heart racing, she answered enthusiastically, excitement bubbling through her. Could this be the turning point? Each new conversation felt like stepping stones into an unknown, exhilarating territory. But the shadow of Mr. Grayson lingered, a dark reminder of the contempt she sought to escape. As she wiped down the counter that afternoon, he made a passing comment laced with scorn. "So, you think you're too good to be a waitress now?" The word stung, but instead of retreating into her shell, Sarah turned to face him, channeling the strength she had unearthed. Gathering her breath, she replied, "I'm exploring my options, Mr. Grayson. I want to be here forever." His expression darkened, but rather than the familiar defeat washing over her, a surge of power enveloped her. She had stood tall against his disparagement, her small declaration resonating within the walls of the diner. Maybe she wasn't just a waitress after all, perhaps she had the potential to transform her reality, or at least break free from the confines of expectation. As the final customers departed and the lights dimmed, Sarah leaned against the counter, breathing deeply as her heart still raced. The burgeoning promise of her tutoring response ignited a profound sense of agency within her. She understood, though, that real change wouldn't come easy. The looming uncertainty threatened to destabilize her newfound resolve. But now, the looming question remained: how would she confront the challenges ahead, especially the resistance she would undoubtedly face from Mr. Grayson? The time had come to face not just her insecurities, but also the man who mocked her ambition. Would she seize this opportunity to redefine herself, or would she remain tied to the restaurant, a reluctant servant? The path she could take was just beginning to unfold, layered with potential, yet fraught with risk. Tomorrow awaited her, a blank canvas, so what would she paint? The next day dawned with the same warm light filtering through the diner's windows, but Sarah felt it differently. Today wasn't just another Groundhog Day, it was filled with palpable potential, stitched together by her aspirations. Customers trickled in, ordering and chatting, but her mind only half engaged in the chatter, preoccupied with the volley of messages she had received overnight. Every ping from her phone was a flicker of hope, a reminder that she was stepping into a new role. Her first official tutoring session was scheduled for that evening, giving her an adrenaline rush that collided with the lingering trepidation. As she filled coffee cups, she envisioned the small classroom, the eager expressions of students ready to learn. The thought advanced her adrenaline, distracting her momentarily from the frenzied pace of the diner. Yet, Mr. Grayson's presence hovered like a dark cloud. His disdainful attitude formed a contrast against the vibrant energy she was starting to cultivate. Midway through a busy lunch rush, he approached her with an air of calculated indifference. "You really think a couple of lessons are going to change your life?" he quipped mockingly, glancing over his shoulder at a group of laughing customers who seemed oblivious to their exchange. Staring directly into his eyes, Sarah felt the infamous knot of anxiety that always gripped her begin to unravel. "I believe that every little step counts, Mr. Grayson. This is about more than just money for me." The sharpness of her voice surprised her, a hint of the power she had been afraid to embrace. The mixture of confusion and irritation in his eyes acted as fuel, propelling her to push forward through the moment. His face hardened, embarrassment twisted into annoyance. But instead of relenting or backing down, he leaned in closer, lowering his voice with a sneer. "You think you can just waltz out of here with your little ambitions as if they matter? You're a waitress, Sarah. Nothing more. Remember where you belong." Every hurtful word landed like a punch, but instead of shrinking, her determination solidified. She had carried those labels far too long, and now they began to chafe. "Maybe you see me as a waitress, but I see myself as more, and I will prove it." Each syllable ignited a flicker of fire within, strong enough to challenge the shadows he cast. She turned to grab a fresh pot of coffee. The action allowed her a moment to collect herself. Anxiety bubbled once more, but it was underpinned with something she had never felt before: resolve. The vision of her life beyond the diner crystallized. Each cup she poured was a testament to her resilience, a promise to herself that she could rise above. As the afternoon wore on, her thoughts drifted back to her tutoring plans. She spent the quiet moments behind the counter strategizing, preparing her lesson plans in her mind, every hour becoming a small rehearsal for the shift ahead. She envisioned how she would encourage her students to embrace a new language, a gift she herself was now learning to cherish. When the diner finally emptied that day, a sense of accomplishment washed over her despite the challenges. She knew the evening would test her as she stood in front of strangers, ready to share her knowledge. The thought sent a thrilling mix of anticipation and anxiety through her, but there was no room for hesitation now. Tomorrow would bring a new challenge, undoubtedly, and her heart raced at the uncertainty of who she would meet and what she would face. Would they encourage her, or like Mr. Grayson, attempt to diminish her ambition? The foundation of her growth was laid, but would she have the strength to build upon it in the face of adversity? Determined, Sarah locked up the diner, breathing in the crisp evening air, filled with hope and determination. The roads ahead remained unclear, but she had taken the first steps into a realm she had long avoided. And as the night closed in, the question loomed larger than life: could she navigate this newfound territory of building her dreams while battling the ones who never believed in her? The sun hung low in the sky, painting the world in hues of gold as Sarah pulled into the parking lot of the community center. She parked her car and stared at the building before her, the adrenaline coursing through her veins like electricity. Today was the day she would stand before her first group of students, and with each tick of the clock, the gap between excitement and fear narrowed. She stepped inside, the smell of fresh paint mingling with the faint aroma of coffee from the break room. The quiet buzz of conversation flowed through the halls. She could hear laughter, enthusiasm, and a sprinkle of baby steps towards goals similar to hers. Her heart raced as she walked down the corridor, glancing at classroom doors that felt like portals to new beginnings. Entering the classroom, she was greeted by a varied group of eager faces brightening the space. Some looked as unsure as she felt, others exuded confidence. They were waiting for her. An unexpected swell of nerves washed over her, but she quickly squashed it down. This was her arena, her stage to rise above the labels others had placed on her. "Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah," she greeted, her voice firm yet warm, revealing a budding authority she hadn't realized had been tucked away. The students nodded and some smiled back, their eyes reflecting curiosity. As she began, she felt the rhythm of teaching wash over her, methodically guiding the students through their learning objectives. Each word she spoke unleashed layers of her experience and passion for language. She engaged them with practical exercises, humor, and an innate understanding of their struggles, recalling her own journey with English as a second language. The relief of not being judged was palpable, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a flicker of genuine belonging. However, as the minutes melted into an hour, her confidence began to intertwine with a gnawing awareness of Mr. Grayson's voice haunting her thoughts. It echoed ominously. Each session insidiously became a measure of whether she could drop the waitress title she had been labeled with. During a breakout session, one of the students expressed doubts. "I don't think I can speak as well as you. I feel like I'll always be just me," he lamented. His eyes locked on hers, searching for assurance that she hoped to give. The weight of his insecurity mirrored her own past doubts. Caught off guard by the reflection of her struggles in him, she felt a sense of urgency ignite within her. Every word from Mr. Grayson flooded back, urging her to quell the flame she'd ignited. But instead, Sarah leaned into that vulnerability, recalling how she had risen from self-doubt. "Just like you, I once felt that I would never be more than a waitress. But every struggle can lead to growth. It's not where we start that defines us, it's where we choose to go," she encouraged, firmly planting her belief in his potential like seeds in fertile soil. As she spoke, she realized the lesson wasn't just for him, it was meant for her too. The boundaries she had accepted were dissolving, bit by bit, like the fading warmth of the sun outside the window. The session concluded with applause and expressions of gratitude, but that wasn't what soared in her heart. It was the realization that vulnerability could be strength. Something in her was shifting, reaffirming her purpose and expanding her vision of who she could become. She packed her things, her heart lighter than when she arrived, though awareness of the road ahead still lingered. Robert Grayson remained an anchor in her mind, his condescension a reminder of the voices she would carry within. But now, they were no longer chains, they were challenges. As she exited the building, her phone chimed again, a new message that sent her heart racing. A familiar name greeted her eyes, Mr. Grayson. The time had come to face him again. Could she hold on to this burgeoning strength in the presence of his derision? The dim light of her living room felt oppressive, shadows stretching across the walls as Sarah sank into the couch, cradling her phone in her palms. Mr. Grayson's message loomed like an impending storm. "We need to discuss your teaching methods. Meet me tomorrow." The words chilled her, they had the weight of judgment wrapped in a veneer of professionalism. She had thought her first class would liberate her from his grasp, but now it felt like a tightening vice. Her heart raced as doubt crept back, a serpent coiling tighter with each beat. What if he belittled her again? She had just begun to carve out her identity as an educator, and now the specter of his disapproval hung in the air. She flicked her phone to life, scanning for motivational quotes or affirmations, but nothing felt authentic enough to quiet the thunder in her mind. Instead of seeking distractions, she closed her eyes, recalling the faces of her students. Every smile, every nod of understanding anchored her resolve. They believed in her. She had earned their trust in just one session, even when his voice echoed in the recesses of her thoughts. Wasn't this all part of her evolution? Determination blossomed within her. No longer would she be tethered to the waitress identity he so readily assigned. She envisioned herself thriving, not just surviving. She needed to confront him, to emerge unscathed and fortified. The morning light broke through her curtains, spilling warmth across her workspace as she prepared for their meeting. She pinned her hair back, a strategic choice meant to reflect both professionalism and decisiveness. The outfit she chose was meticulously selected, striking a balance between authority and approachability. Every piece was a statement. She was no longer the waitress waiting for acceptance, she was an educator ready to expand horizons. As she arrived at the cafe he had suggested, she found him waiting, casually scrolling through his phone. The scent of roasted coffee lingered in the air, but the bitterness of anxiety overshadowed it. She inhaled deeply, grounding herself in the moment. This was her time to assert her journey, to frame her narrative in a language he would understand. "Mr. Grayson," she began evenly, projecting confidence into her voice, "I appreciate you taking the time to meet today." He looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly, perhaps trying to assess whether she would fall back into the shell he had constructed for her. I have serious concerns regarding your approach, he replied, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her as if waiting for her to crumble. The familiar impatience crackled around him, but this time she refused to cower. Did you attend the session? She countered, not as a challenge but as an invitation to engage in genuine discussion. Yes. You were energetic, but the structure felt loose. Students benefited from rules. Structure is important, she acknowledged, but so is trust. I am building a space where they can embrace their potential without fear. If they feel chained by rigidity, how will they discover their voice? He stiffened, and the corner of her mouth rose in subtle triumph. You're well versed in theory, Sarah, but practical application is what counts, he replied, attempting to regain the upper hand. Practical application comes from believing in people. She leaned in, allowing her earnestness to pour from her eyes. You oversee change in others, Mr. Grayson, but you must truly see them first to inspire that transformation. There it was, a peek behind her veil of fear, revealing a sharpened sense of purpose. The silence unfurled between them, heavy and charged. Was there a crack in his facade? Or merely a moment before he struck back? Her heart raced as the tension thickened. She knew this was about more than just her lesson plans, it was about contesting the narrative he sought to impose on her. She was no longer the label he had chosen. She was becoming something else entirely. Somewhere deep inside, a plan was taking shape, a way to turn the table on their next encounter. But first, she had to see how he would respond. The cafe pulsed with life around them, but in that moment, it was just the two of them. Would he bend beneath her resolve, or would he fight back with a devastating blow? What lay ahead was uncertain, but in this elusive dance of power, Sarah was ready for the next step. Sarah leaned back slightly, feeling a rush of adrenaline mix with the simmering tension. Mr. Grayson had made his play, bearing his skepticism like a weapon, but she sensed the moment had shifted. The air hummed with the unspoken challenges. She needed to be clear, direct, and, most importantly, unapologetically herself. I understand your focus on structure, Mr. Grayson, she continued, her voice steady. But structure without a human connection is just a cage. It's vital that students not only learn but feel empowered in their learning. That's the environment I'm creating. His brow furrowed, revealing a flicker of surprise. Empowerment can only go so far. What if they don't follow through on your methods? They will, if they feel like their voices matter, she asserted, rising to his challenge. You mentioned they need rules, but tell me who set those rules for you? Was it a fear of failure, or did someone inspire you to evolve? He opened his mouth as if to reply, but his words caught in his throat. This was a different Sarah he was facing, one who could articulate her points with a blend of empathy and conviction, challenging the very framework he had built around her. It was in this exchange that Sarah began to realize something crucial about herself. Each word she fired back was not just an answer, it was a revelation of her growing confidence. She had dropped the facade of the waitress seeking approval and had stepped into the shoes of an educator who belonged in that space. She was no longer on the defensive, she was defining the terms of engagement. Do you see a difference in your students? She asked, leaning closer. Do you notice how they light up when they realize they can explore ideas freely without the pressure of your expectations? She let that question linger in the air, searching his expression for a sign of recognition. Mr. Grayson shifted uncomfortably, and for a moment, his bravado wavered. His typical dismissive demeanor was replaced by uncertainty, an acknowledgement that perhaps there was merit in her approach. But then he hardened again, folding his arms tighter. Idealism only works if it's grounded in reality, Sarah. What happens when those students face real challenges outside your little bubble? Real challenges need real solutions, she countered. I want them to approach those challenges with the confidence that they can tackle anything. That's resilience. Her heart echoed the conviction behind her words, each beat amplifying her understanding of what it meant to authentically empower others. You might not see the immediate effects, she pressed on, buoyed by her internal force. But meaningful change takes time. You've built a system that thrives on rigid protocols, but I'm cultivating a culture of curiosity. Isn't that ultimately what education is about? As she spoke, she felt an unexpected clarity washing over her, a realization that confrontation didn't have to be combative. It could be a dialogue, an opportunity for both parties to reflect and grow. The very notion of competing narratives had begun to meld into something more substantive, something that held the potential for collaboration. But Mr. Grayson's face began to harden again, his defenses up, and Sarah sensed a formidable pushback on the horizon. This wasn't done yet. Perhaps your idealism will lead to significant shortcomings, he shot back, folding his arms tighter, losing the skepticism she had long fought to shake off. Ultimately, harsh realities reveal true educators. Sarah felt a flicker of frustration but caught herself. Would she let him dictate her trajectory once more? No. She had grown too much for that. Isn't it better to find out how they can soar rather than clip their wings before they've taken flight? With that, silence enveloped them once more, and the world around them dimmed into insignificance. Would he continue to resist, or could she unearth something within him that was worth nurturing? As they sat there, the stakes climbed higher. She had ignited something in him, and perhaps in herself as well. Yet, his next words would determine whether this encounter would lead to collaboration or further conflict. The moment of truth hung between them, charged with possibilities, and Sarah braced herself for whatever would come next. What insight would challenge her further? What rush of clarity awaited her, and how would it sharpen the conflict further? The silence stretched between them, taut with unspoken questions. Sarah's instincts honed in on every twitch of Mr. Grayson's expression, searching for a crack in his stoic facade. She had come too far to back down now, fueled by an urgency that pierced through her earlier self-doubts. Sometimes, he began, voice low but steady, I wonder if you've romanticized teaching into something it's not. Students are not delicate flowers, they need to learn how the world truly operates. Oh, I get it, Sarah replied, an edge to her tone igniting within her. You believe in tough love, right? The shock of reality slamming down like a hammer to mold them into dependable workers. But here's the catch: what about inspiration? Without it, those students might comply, but will they ever flourish? Flourishing doesn't pay the bills, he shot back, irritation creeping into his voice. A momentary heat clamored in her chest. Neither does silence, she countered, heart pounding. She realized she was not just grappling against his skepticism, she was wrestling with the remnants of her own fears about authority and validation. Tell me honestly, she pressed on, swallowing the tightness in her throat, when was the last time you witnessed a student light up in class because they were inspired, not just informed? Because they knew their voice had value? Mr. Grayson's gaze shifted, the rigid lines of his expression blurring just a bit. He seemed momentarily lost in thought, perhaps reflecting on memories that he seldom permitted to surface. Fine, he finally muttered, bitterness still lacing his words. You want them to feel valued, to have their voices heard. But how do you guarantee they won't fall behind when real challenges come knocking? When life isn't so forgiving? Sarah could feel a storm brewing within her, a mixture of indignation and determination. Life isn't forgiving, but that's why we prepare them for it, not by building walls that keep them trapped, but by teaching them to navigate through adversity. It's about equipping them with tools, not just instructions. Equipped with what? Dreams? He scoffed. Dreams, ideas, creativity, yes. The same things that revolutionized industries may be pivotal in their lives too. Why shouldn't we build that foundation now? As she spoke, an unforeseen realization dawned. Her doubts were being eradicated, buffed away by her pursuit of truth in education. Mr. Grayson remained quiet, the inner conflict churning visibly on his face. She could see the lines deepen around his eyes as he stewed over her points, weighing them against the rigidity he had so fiercely protected. Suddenly, he leaned in, closer than before, the challenge shifting in the air. "So what's your plan, Sarah? Rub some pixie dust on them and hope they become enlightened thinkers tomorrow?" On the contrary, she challenged back, "It's about laying down nuanced discussions and fostering adaptability. They need the room to fail, to think outside the box, but also the framework to develop their ideas into realities, balancing creativity with strategy." Mr. Grayson looked at her, and for an instant, she glimpsed something almost vulnerable behind the dominant mask. "But what if they fail? What if I'm right? Failure isn't the end, it's an essential step in growth. By grappling with difficulties, they will build resilience, one that can weather any storm outside those classroom walls," Sarah declared, her conviction unyielding. Would he finally see the relevance of her approach? She felt the tension shift once more, her heart pounding with the thrill of possibility. The stakes were high, she could not back down now, and yet his next words seemed to hang in the balance. There lay an opening, a fork in their dialogue that could lead either to collaboration or a return to complacency. Would Mr. Grayson choose to evolve, or continue along the path of rigid skepticism? "Let us say, hypothetically, I'm interested in hearing this plan of yours," he started. "What would that look like?" A thrill ran down her spine, an electric urgency coursing through her. Sarah drew a deep breath. The moment crystallizing with potential, and prepared to articulate her vision, aware that this was the juncture where her authority and ambitions could fully unfurl. Would she seize this opportunity or let hesitation rob her of the chance to redefine their future together? "First, I'd implement a project-based learning approach," Sarah began, her voice steady, her heart still racing. She drew on her earlier enthusiasm, rolling out her ideas with clarity. Projects that challenge students to connect real-world scenarios with their personal experiences, blending creativity with practical skills. Mr. Grayson's expression remained guarded, but his eyes flickered with an inkling of interest. "We know students thrive when they can relate concepts to their lives," she pressed on, the warmth of her passion warming the cool air between them. "By allowing them to explore topics that ignite their interests, we lead them to develop critical thinking, problem-solving skills, qualities that will serve them long after they leave our classroom." "Sounds good in theory," he grumbled, skepticism still staining his words, "but how do we measure success? Grades are all that matter in the end. How do you suppose they'll flourish with no clear metrics?" "Metrics can be more than just grades," Sarah exclaimed, her mind racing with examples. "We could develop qualitative assessments, peer reviews, self-reflections, and portfolios that highlight individual strengths. This way, students won't just be numbers on a report card, they will see a tangible representation of their growth." Mr. Grayson leaned back, studying her with a scrutinizing gaze. "And you believe students can handle this level of independence? That they'll rise to the challenge instead of slipping through the cracks?" "Absolutely," she asserted, feeling each word resonate deeply within her. "Empowering them is a crucial part of cultivating resilience. We have to trust them to navigate their learning paths, providing guidance without suffocating their spirit. It's a shift toward mentorship instead of mere instruction." He chuckled, a sound devoid of amusement. "So you're suggesting we coddle them with guidance instead of teaching them discipline? Discipline doesn't equate to devoid of inspiration." Sarah shot back, her pulse quickening. "I want them to understand the value of hard work, but let us not forget the value of creativity. That's what will help them innovate when they need to think on their feet." She paused, taking a moment to recalibrate her thoughts. This was more than just about winning him over, she was presenting a vision that could revolutionize the way they approached education. Imagine if they encountered a problem and tackled it by thinking outside the box rather than reciting facts they memorized. Isn't that the kind of solution-oriented mindset we seek in the workforce today? Mr. Grayson fell silent again, appearing to wrestle with her points. The narrowing lines on his face suggested he was contemplating the truths hidden within her arguments, an unexpected crack in his fortress of conservatism. Suppose you're right, he conceded reluctantly. What about the setbacks? The failures? Will the students really learn from those experiences? Without a doubt, Sarah replied, her conviction unwavering. The ability to rebound from failure is critical for personal development. We need to foster an environment that encourages risk-taking and acknowledges mistakes as learning opportunities. In that moment, Sarah realized she was not just advocating for her students, she was advocating for herself. This discussion was redefining her role not only as an educator but as a leader who could influence change. The final piece of her plan began to crystallize in her mind as she spoke, bullet-pointing her thoughts: mentorship, accountability, transparency. We craft a culture of continuous feedback and open dialogue where students know their opinions matter. Mr. Grayson's brow furrowed, his mind clearly battling the weight of this new perspective. It's a gamble, Sarah. We could lose students in the process. It's a gamble I'm willing to take. Think about the alternatives: complacency and conformity. Those lead to better test scores but soul-crushing futures. Just as she breathed a sigh of relief, believing she had struck a chord, an abrupt thought crossed her mind: was she any different from her students? What if she stumbled? What if she scared him off by advocating for too much change at once? Doubt gnawed at her resolve briefly, but she squashed it down, fully aware that this conversation could tempt destiny to shift in her favor. Mr. Grayson, I believe that we owe it to our students to at least try, she said, a steely resolve settling on her words. But for this to happen, I need your support. Will you stand with me? The silence that followed felt charged, a pulsing tension thick enough to cut. She sensed opportunities swirling in the air, ready to either sprout new beginnings or dissolve into nothingness. Was he prepared to reverse the tide? Would he join her vision or let her spiral back into the shadows of his rigid classroom? Sarah's pulse quickened at the profound uncertainty of his response, knowing that his decision could change her path forever. The stillness in Mr. Grayson's office grew unbearable, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension. Sarah's heart thudded against her ribcage, her resolve trembling in the face of the silence. Finally, Mr. Grayson broke the stillness. Fine, he relented, but his tone was half-hearted, lackluster. I'll support your initiative, but only if you can prove it's effective by the end of the semester. We'll document every step. His eyes narrowed slightly as if daring her to stumble. Relief surged through Sarah momentarily, igniting a renewed sense of purpose. But underpinning that relief was anxiety, a palpable pressure to validate her vision. The stakes had risen. Failure now licked at the edges of her excitement, whispering doubts that flitted through her mind like shadows. Was she ready for this? Thank you, Mr. Grayson. I appreciate your willingness to consider change, she said, her voice steady, though she could feel the weight of his words hanging over her. As she left his office, each step felt heavier, her palms slightly clammy. The hallways buzzed with the sounds of laughter and chatter, and energy that should have invigorated her, yet now it draped her in a cloak of uncertainty. The students were oblivious, bright-eyed with potential. Did they have any idea of the hefty burden that rested on their shoulders, entwined with her vision? Optimism wrestled with dread in her mind. She could already hear the echoes of chuckles from the teaching staff at staff meetings. What if the project-based approach flopped? What if students lost interest? Would she be standing at the front of the class, watching them disengage, unable to show them the newfound pathways she envisioned? Still, a flicker of excitement warmed her spirit. She envisioned the students engaged in debates, their voices rising in animated arguments, ideas bouncing off walls, the excitement of creation and discovery ignited. She began to strategize how to outline the project framework, focusing on the first few weeks to build momentum. She gathered resources, flipped through articles, and searched for successful models of project-based learning to present to her class. Preparation became her solace, a tangible action she could cling to amidst swirling fears. Each piece she assembled reinforced her determination, forging a blueprint for success. But as the days passed, those fears crept further into her consciousness, morphing into a voice that questioned her right to lead. What if she wasn't capable of being the transformative mentor she aspired to be? Who was she in the grand tapestry of education? Fear threatened to wrap around her throat like a noose, making her breath shallow. Determined to combat this doubt, she decided to seek mentorship herself. She reached out to a local educational consultant known for successful student engagement strategies. The decision brought a flicker of hope. Having someone guide her through this would not only bolster her plan but could also bolster her waning confidence. As she entered the coffee shop for their first meeting, she scanned the room nervously, her stomach twisting with nerves. What if this consultant judged her or belittled her aspirations? The moment she approached the table, she caught their eyes. A reassuring warmth radiated from her mentor, who offered a genuine smile. That small gesture stirred an unexpected clarity within Sarah. With every word exchanged, it became evident that this was a step toward her own evolution. Not only would she craft a new path for her students, but she would redefine her role and capabilities as an educator. Through shared discussions and feedback, Sarah began to unearth tools to transform her approach. She dove deeper into understanding student learning styles and project implementation strategies, her passion fueled by every success story shared. But as the meeting wrapped up, her moment of revelation arrived. The consultant, shifting in her seat, offered a warning tinged with sincerity. Change takes time, Sarah. There will be resistance, challenges you don't expect. Not everyone will support you. Some colleagues may undermine your efforts outright. The words hung heavy in the air. Would she have the strength to persist? Could she remain steadfast in the face of potential backlash? Sarah nodded, a glimmer of grit igniting in her demeanor. Her path was no longer solely about the students. It was about her own courage, resilience, and the ability to stand up against criticisms and defend her vision for change. As she left the coffee shop, a newfound determination coursed through her veins. The first step towards something greater had been taken, and although daunting challenges awaited her, she felt more equipped to tackle them head-on. But just as she walked into the dim evening light, another thought pierced her reflection. Was she truly ready to face those who opposed her within the school? The looming confrontation promised to eclipse her previous victories as a battle for her vision began to loom on the horizon. The cool breeze greeted Sarah as she made her way toward the community center for her first official project-based learning session, a mix of anticipation and determination fueling every step. Today was pivotal not just for her students, but for her journey of transformation and self-actualization. As she entered the classroom, she surveyed the room filled with eager faces, ready for engagement in ways they never had experienced before. She could feel the weight of their expectations, yet this time, that weight didn't feel burdensome but instead, invigorating. With a confident smile, she began. Welcome, class. Today, we're diving into a project that directly relates to your lives. You will create a presentation on a social issue you care about, researching its impact and proposing your solutions. The room buzzed with curiosity and questions, only fueling her enthusiasm. Each student had a voice, each of them capable of contributing something invaluable. As they broke into groups, she moved among them, stimulating dialogue, igniting their passion, and witnessing the innate creativity bubbling forth. With every interaction, she felt a sense of liberation. She was not merely instructing but nurturing, planting the seeds of resilience, guiding them toward their paths where their voices mattered. It was exhilarating to be part of their growth, a transformation she had longed to initiate. As the weeks unfolded, positive sentiments flooded back into her reality. The progress she monitored within her classroom radiated outward. Students actively engaged, their faces alight with inspiration. Her vision was taking shape exponentially. Yet, even amid all the commendation, the specter of Mr. Grayson loomed larger than ever. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said one afternoon, his tone lacking the customary scorn but nevertheless cold. The tension flooded back into her body as he motioned for her to sit. Without hesitation, she straightened her posture, willing herself to remain present amidst lingering doubts. "What is it?" she asked, allowing her heart to remain steady despite the pressure. He leaned in, a subtle exploration of her progress evident in his gaze. "I've been monitoring the classroom. I must admit, your students are engaged. But are they truly grasping the material?" A spark ignited within her. "They grasp more than any standardized test could measure, Mr. Grayson. They're learning to think critically, they're finding their voices. That's the goal," she asserted, feeling the urgency behind her words. He regarded her quietly before speaking, "But what if it becomes chaos? What if they don't grasp further concepts?" "Chaos can lead to creativity," she replied, the words pouring freely. "Real learning often does. We can't cage their minds with fear of failure. When they stumble, they learn to rebound. Isn't that what we want to cultivate, thinkers who can adapt to challenges?" In that moment, something shifted between them. A slight furrow appeared on Mr. Grayson's brow, as if he was reconsidering long-held beliefs. She felt a rush of recognition, the tables were turning, and her voice was no longer caged. Gradually, he responded with an understated nod. "Maybe you're onto something." His unexpected admission solidified a shift in the air, a recognition of her competence, growth crystallized into acknowledgement. Stepping into her leadership role transcended the boundaries Mr. Grayson had initially placed on her. She was proving that ambition could coexist with compassion, innovation with structure. As the months rolled on, Sarah thrived. They documented the process of project-based learning, celebrating not just academic growth, but also personal breakthroughs. Her students began to share their stories, connect with community issues, and eventually presented them to the assembly, all transforming before the eyes of their peers and teachers. The day of the presentation arrived, brimming with vivacity. Sarah watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling as her students captivated the audience with their insights and passionate delivery. Each student who stepped up to speak proved that courage thrived within them, reflecting a partnership she crafted. They were no longer lost in the backwoods of fear but were climbing mountains together. As the last student finished, the applause thundered in waves that cascaded through the auditorium. In that moment, Sarah understood the profound significance of each hurdle she had navigated. It wasn't just about the approval she had sought from Mr. Grayson, but about establishing her identity as an educator and leader, surpassing every label cast upon her. Months earlier, she had arrived at this very place feeling like she needed to prove herself, yet struggled against an oppressive identity. Now, she stood triumphant, confident, capable, and above all, recognized. Through her journey, she had not only embraced her role as an educator but also chiseled out her rightful place within a system that had long sought to diminish her. Sarah understood that merit belonged to those who dare to redefine narratives not just for themselves, but for those they aspire to uplift. And as Mr. Grayson approached her after the assembly, a genuine smile crossed his lips. "You did well, Sarah," he said, the words brimming with newfound respect. She felt a surge of fulfillment. She had indeed conquered not just within her career, but also within herself. In that moment, she recognized the power of transformation, the leap from self-doubt to empowerment, from fear to unshakable resolve. Sarah had proven that every ambition evolves into tangible achievement through connection, belief, and the courage to stand firm. The path ahead remained bright, filled with possibilities as she embraced her new chapter. Each step she took would echo the strength she had unearthed, not just as a teacher but as the woman she had become. It was a responsibility she willingly bore as she looked into the future, a future that would forever prioritize growth, resilience, and the vibrant voices of her students. Now was the moment for action, not just for herself, but for a world ready to listen. As she stepped out of the auditorium, she vowed to continue igniting the fires of ambition in every heart she encountered, an unstoppable force defining her legacy. Do you want more stories of remarkable transformations and life-changing growth? You need to subscribe now to be part of this journey. Show your support by leaving a like right now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear your thoughts. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's extraordinary journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion.